And so I'll just give you a quick overview of the study that I did. I was interested, can we actually teach kids in the very first year of school? In Nova Scotia, it was called grade primary. It'd be the equivalent of kindergarten here. So it's like, I wasn't sure, can we? And this is the youngest. A lot of the literature is students who are 7 to 10 years old. So I was a true question, like, can kids learn this stuff? Do they like it? Are they running away from me? Do they want to come to learn these things? And then the second question is, does training classmates in PRT improve the social skills of children with autism? So we had 4 children with autism and their parents and teachers, and we had 4 play coaches and their parents and teachers. We also had a typically developing comparison group. So one of the things, teachers who are out there, that the social norms of any setting changes, right? So what's socially normative amongst your group of friends might be different than what's socially normative in another group of friends, or even between different schools and classrooms. So we didn't want to hold the kids with autism to a higher standard than what would be typical of that class. So we also had some comparison groups of that. But I think that's an important thing to think about anyway, right? We wouldn't expect anyone to take turns 100% of the time. So you can get a sense here of the children with autism. So both the children with autism and the play coaches were 6, either 5 or 6, and all of the children with autism were boys, and all of the play coaches were boys except for one girl that you saw. And we had a range actually of cognitive functioning and intellectual functioning and communication skills. There's some average range children, and you can see the 4th child there was actually quite a bit lower in terms of their communication and cognitive function. So the very first question that I was very curious to find out was, can children and classmates learn these skills? And the answer is yes. And one of the things that surprised me was that at baseline, some of these 5 and 6-year-olds actually had some natural PRT skills. And I was sort of surprised by this, and I often wonder, like, how can we self-select for these kids who kind of have some of these natural skills? But after the intervention and at a 6 to 9 week follow-up, the skills continued to increase to the point where they were in the 73% range at the 6 to 9 week follow-up. The second question was, do the social skills of children with autism improve? So it's one thing for the kids to learn these skills, but if it doesn't increase the social skills of these kids, then kind of what's the point? And to give you a sense of the way that we look at this, so this is what we call a single subject design. So a lot of research looks at groups of kids and looks at group numbers, whereas single subject design looks at each individual child's journey through this intervention. And we look at video samples. So we, just like that classroom that you saw where there was a bunch of toys and the youth with autism and the classmate, we would take 10-minute video samples and look at the 2 different things that we are interested in. So you can see here on the x-axis on the bottom, those were the video samples, the 10-minute video samples and the number of sessions. And on the y-axis, there was the variable that we were interested in. So we were interested in understanding percentage of engagement. So how often were the 2 children interacting? The other thing we were interested in looking at is how well do children with autism initiate social interactions? So how often do they try to talk to their classmate? How often do they try to ask if they want to play? And if you look at the horizontal black bar there, I just want to point out that that is actually the normative data on 2 typically developing classmates from the same classroom to show what's typical in that classroom for 2 kids who don't have autism in the exact same setting, in the exact same context. And so, as you can see, most typically developing kids are not engaging with each other 100% of the time. It kind of falls more in that 75% range. And then the first block is before any intervention happened. So there's no instruction at all during that phase. Post-training is immediately after the intervention, and follow-up was 6 to 9 weeks later. So the first question in terms of social skills is, were children and students with autism more engaged with their peers after the intervention? And this is a very busy graph. I won't get into all of the data, but I just want to point out that the black bar is students with autism, which I'll focus on primarily, but I also wanted to understand, Do the children with autism generalize these skills with other classmates who have not actually been taught these skills? And that's the red line. And the blue line is, does the child with autism generalize these skills to a different location that wasn't the one that they were trained in? And again, you can see the typical norm comparison there. So if we just look here, you can notice that child 1 and child 3 and child 4 improved after intervention. And child 2 just happened to be pretty darn good, as it turned out, all the way through, which is wonderful in and of itself. The next question that I was interested in is, in terms of social skills, do children with autism initiate more with their classmates after the intervention? And I just want to put a little plug for initiations, because I think that's one of the things that pivotal response treatment does quite well, is that typically it's gets kids to kind of actually, because they're motivated, they're going to be more likely to initiate with their peers, where some other types of interventions sometimes get kids to be really good at responding, but maybe not so great at initiating. It's harder to teach initiation, but it's a really important skill. So in terms of initiations, the ones that we can be confident actually increased in their initiations were child 3 and child 4. Child 1 and child 2, there's a bit more variability. So I think those are the graphs, but I actually think that the videos show more of the story. So I'm going to show you one particular child's journey through the intervention. The next video I'm going to show you is at baseline, before any intervention actually happened. So again, we haven't taught anything to these youth. They've already been in school for at least 4 or 5 months at this point. And when left to their own devices, the child with autism and the play coach are not going to interact. And for those of you who are watching and can't see the video, the boy with autism is, you can't see it right now, but he is essentially rolling a little ketchup bottle, a little play bottle back and forth. And he actually would, left to his own devices, this little boy with these toys would just roll that back and forth. He had access to any toy that he wanted and a peer, and that's what he would have spent his time doing, whereas the little girl, who was the play coach, played sort of functionally on her own with the game of Trouble. So the next clip that you'll see is immediately after the intervention. So the little boy and the little girl are now together at the kitchen with his car.
Watch this.
The little boy's eating the car now. And there's beautiful shared affect here. You can just see it.
I'm cooking across that.
And again, none of this was directly taught. Affect skills or eye contact wasn't directly taught. This is just happening. Lots of pretend eating happening.
So guess.
Some pretend throw up of the car. So I think this is a really nice example of how effective this little play coach is. I would have never thought to incorporate his interest of car in cooking the car, but she really just brought his motivation in there and did such a beautiful job, and you could just see all the beautiful affect and skills that came along without direct teaching. Now I'm going to show you a clip of the two of them 6 to 9 weeks after the intervention ended, and there was no kind of booster sessions in between. We sort of left the school and came back. And I want you to notice the difference in terms of the little boy initiating right away.
Evelina, what would you like to play? Frisbee. Frisbee. That's a great idea. Okay, I'm going to stay right here. You stay where you are. Ready? He's going to stay right here. Woo! Watch. What? Trying to not hit no chairs? No. But it was a close try. There's a fragrance right there.
Okay, so you can see that he was initiated in this circumstance, which was quite remarkable. So in summary, yes, you can teach classmates to implement this kind of intervention. It does increase the engagement of peers together, and for some of the kids, about half of the kids, they got better at being initiators of this intervention. And I do have some more information in your handouts about how you can implement this more practically at your school, but this kind of gives you a bit of an idea of where to go from here.